secret space program, Randy Cramer, a soldier of the Mars Defense Force. A secret space program whistleblower claims humans have been traveling to Mars for decades. Interestingly, many former NASA employees and military officials have come forward speaking about the existence of a secretive space program and technology that goes far beyond what society knows. There exists a shadowy government with its own air force, its own navy, its own fundraising mechanism, and the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself. Senator Daniel K. Inouye. Mars is the #1 place in the solar system where we really want to go. During the 67th Annual International Astronautical Congress in Guadalajara, Mexico, Elon Musk, the head of Tesla Motors, and SpaceX announced that not only are humans going to travel to Mars in the near future, but we are going to establish a colony on the surface of the red planet where people will live. However, all of this isn't new according to secret space program whistleblower Randy Cramer. Randy Cramer's life experiences are either incredible or absurd. He reports that he spent 20 years as a Marine in the U.S. Secret Space Program, SSP. His tour of duty took him first to an elaborate, secret, fully equipped base on the Moon. Then, he went to Mars where he spent 17 years at a military base. After a major loss of human lives during a battle between the military forces and native people of Mars, he was deployed back to the Moon where he spent his final 3 years as a military pilot. He tells his story with vivid and captivating detail. Randy Cramer, space traveler and Mars colonist. Randy Cramer, who initially told his story under the pseudonym Captain K, says he was only 4 years old when he began training for the SSP through a program called Project Moonshadow. He was one of approximately 300 girls and boys who were covertly drafted to participate in the program. Girls comprised only 20% of the group, a male-female ratio that remained consistent during his entire 20 years with the SSP. Cramer recalls that during his childhood, he would be taken from his bed at night. Even though he would be gone for days or even weeks, he would be returned to his bed and travel back in time to when he was taken. He would wake up as though no time had passed, feeling like he had just had a really, really long dream. When he turned 17 in 1987, Cramer was involuntarily recruited to be part of the Mars Defense Force, MDF, whose purpose was to protect 5 civilian settlements already in existence on Mars. This program was not sponsored by any government or governmental agency, but by an international group comprised of the United States, Germany, Russia, and China. Even though these countries were not getting along very well on Earth, unbeknownst to the public, they secretly joined together to work on the SSP and formed the MDF. Cramer became a captain in the U.S. Marine Corps in this program and was given top-secret clearance, a necessary requirement for those participating in the MDF. When Cramer left Earth, his first stop was a base on the Moon that he believed had been established around 1953 or 1954. This is where he signed his enlistment papers and committed to spending 20 years of service on Mars with a special elite unit of the Marine Corps. In Deep Space series, on Gaia he gives a detailed account of the compound's interior decor, noting that the color and type of carpet and paint on the walls were clearly from the 1950s. What was the purpose of troops on Mars? There were 3 primary purposes for sending secret military-like troops to Mars. 1. To establish an extraterrestrial defense for Earth. 2. To claim Mars as a U.S. territory. 3. To get Martians accustomed to having Earthlings present on their planet. In addition, the Mars Defense Force aimed to research the viability of establishing a human civilization in space should a cataclysm occur on Earth. Cramer was sent to the main settlement of Ares Prime, which was also the first Earth settlement on Mars. The settlement was comprised of the same types of people and organized in the same way as the original colonies were settled in America. People with all types of skills, ranging from scientists to farm workers, live in this colony. The military base at Ares Prime, called Forward Station Zebra, was where Kramer spent all of his time while on Mars. He was given the code name Zen. One of the most remarkable things that Kramer and other members of the SSP who have visited Mars say about the planet is that the air is breathable. His station was in the far north of Mars, and he says that the atmosphere is similar to the Antarctic, which is why he wore a face protector. Taking the protector off in the biting cold was uncomfortable, but it could be done since he could breathe the air. In 2014, a woman, who identified herself only as Jackie, called the radio show Coast to Coast AM. She claimed that men walked on Mars in 1979, and what's more, she had witnessed it. Jackie claimed that her job was to download telemetry data and that she was part of NASA's downstairs team. While she was doing her job, she claimed to have witnessed men walking on Mars via NASA's live feed. She stated they were both dressed in space suits, although they were not the bulky type that we would expect to see. According to Jackie, they came walking over the horizon and toward the Viking Explorer. Jackie also claimed that 6 other NASA employees witnessed the incident with her. When they rushed upstairs to speak to the people directly in charge of the mission, they found that the door had been locked and that paper had been taped over the door windows to block their view of anything that might be happening in the room. The Martians and CRAMER'S last battle. There are 2 main indigenous, intelligent species on Mars, reptilian and insectoid. At CRAMER'S initial briefing, he was told these were native savages and beasts. However, he soon learned that they were evolved species, each with their own culture, civilization and intelligence. Their homes are mostly underground, and Kramer frequently referred to them in interviews as living in hives or nests. At first, the indigenous people treated the humans from Earth as neighbors. As long as their nests and hives were not disturbed, there was no problem. They seemed more interested in maintaining their territory rather than fighting. Even so, there were frequent skirmishes. The humans and Martian natives became weary of fighting and actually signed a treaty agreeing to peace. The treaty had 2 major parts to it. First, the humans would not invade the sacred places of the indigenous people. The second part of the treaty required the humans to work together with the reptoids and insectoids to fight an invading species of reptoids known as the Draconians. The Draconians were vicious and evil, but the joint venture was successful, and the Draconians withdrew. Kramer gets emotional when he talks about the last battle he participated in before leaving Mars. For some reason that he was never able to understand, he was ordered, as part of a 1,000-man force, to go into one of the sacred tunnels of the reptoids to capture an artifact. This was in direct violation of the treaty. Kramer expressed his concern to his commanding officer, who agreed with him, but said he had orders from headquarters, and the mission had to be accomplished. "We all got our orders," the officer told him, "so go do it." The men went through the underground tunnels and came to a large dome, about the size of the Superdome or Astrodome. They lost all communication with headquarters when suddenly, doors all around the edge of the arena opened and out charged the reptoids, swinging large bladed weapons. Kramer said it was like being in a blender. Kramer was one of about 35 men who survived. While he was recovering from his wounds, his superior officer met with him and offered him a pilot position. That sounded great to Kramer. He spent his last 3 years in the SSP as a pilot on the Moon. Restoration of life on Earth. When his 20 years of service were up, he spent several weeks on the Moon for a reverse aging process so that he could be returned to Earth, and inserted back into his original timeline, 1987. His memories of his 20 years of service were suppressed and did not return to him for many years. What does it all mean? Kramer's story is extraordinary. It is even more astonishing that similar stories are told by at least 6 other men who say they served in the SSP on the Moon and on Mars at different times. Although their stories are all similar, they did not serve together, and did not know about each other until they began revealing their experiences. The space travelers all recall different travel methods, but all report experiencing some type of teleportation through a portal. This allowed them to travel quickly to these off-planet locations. They communicated with the indigenous Martians through telepathy. All whistleblowers who tell their stories report the breathability of the Mars air. There is more to Kramer's story. He has been telling it since 2006, and will continue his quest to convince people that there is a secret space program with civilizations established on the Moon, Mars, and perhaps other planets, and solar systems. We invite you to watch Deep Space to learn more about NASA cover-ups, extraterrestrials and other fascinating topics.